The explosion wasn't gunfire, it was outrage. The courtroom lights glared against polished metals that didn't belong to him, as the man in the Marine uniform slammed both fists onto the plaintiff's table so hard the microphones rattled. "You have no right to question a hero," he roared, voice echoing off the oak-paneled walls. Judge Judy didn't flinch. The audience gasped, a sharp intake of collective disbelief. Even the bailiff froze halfway between duty and caution, uncertain whether to step forward or simply watch history unfold. The man's face flushed crimson beneath the fluorescent light. His name tag read M. Rogers, his posture sharp, his chest puffed with pride, or at least something pretending to be it. The ribbons glinted, but something about them didn't sit right. A few veterans in the audience squinted. One whispered, "That's not how they're worn." Judge Judy leaned forward, her voice slicing through the tension like a razor. "Mr. Rogers, I'm questioning the truth. And if you are what you claim to be, you'll have no problem answering me clearly." But the man didn't answer. Instead, he jabbed a finger toward her bench. "You think a TV judge knows about service? You sit behind a camera while men like me bleed for this country." The room went still. Even the hum of the ceiling fans felt heavy. Somewhere in the back, a woman's hand trembled as she covered her mouth. Because even though nobody said it aloud yet, something was off. His boots looked new. His insignia was mismatched. His eyes darted, not like a soldier under pressure, but like a liar trapped in his own story. And sitting just 10 feet behind him was a man who recognized every false stitch on that uniform. He didn't move. He didn't speak. But his jaw tightened as his hand rested over a simple silver bracelet engraved with names. Real Marines, real brothers, gone too soon. He knew before anyone else did. The man screaming in that courtroom was no Marine. Judge Judy broke the silence again, voice low and deliberate. "Mr. Rogers, I've been doing this a long time. I've seen arrogance, entitlement, fraud, but I've never seen anyone insult real heroes so shamelessly." The faker scoffed. "You have no proof." And that was his mistake. Because proof was already waiting just beyond that courtroom door. A truth wearing real scars, not decorations bought online. A truth that had earned every medal with blood, sand, and silence. The fake Marine had no idea that in a few minutes he wouldn't just lose his case. He'd lose his entire identity, exposed in front of millions who would never forget his face. Judge Judy's eyes flicked toward the gallery, almost as if she already knew what justice was about to walk in. "We'll see, Mr. Rogers. In this courtroom, facts outrank fiction." The man smirked, confident in his lie. The real Marine clenched his jaw. And America would soon see a kind of justice that doesn't need special effects or scripts. Just truth, honor, and one judge who refuses to be fooled. So before I tell you how this fake Marine's life got destroyed on national television, how one Real veteran stood up and made the entire courtroom erupt, drop a like right now if you believe real heroes deserve respect. And subscribe if you're tired of watching frauds steal the spotlight from those who've actually earned it. Because what you're about to hear next is the moment honor itself stood up and answered back. The next morning the courtroom looked different. The air itself carried tension, not the quiet anticipation of justice, but the loud confidence of a man who thought he'd already won. Mark Rogers strutted in wearing the same Marine uniform he'd worn the day before, but now his walk was slower, almost rehearsed, a swagger meant to command respect. His medals clinked as he moved, every step a performance. The audience shifted, uneasy. To someone unfamiliar with the military he looked legitimate. But to anyone who'd actually served, his uniform was a billboard of lies. He placed his cap on the table with exaggerated care and straightened his jacket. Then, turning to Judge Judy, he lifted his chin. "Your Honor, I'm here today because this so-called veteran cafe humiliated me. I gave my service for this country, and they treated me like a criminal." Judge Judy said nothing. Her silence was heavy, deliberate. She simply gestured for him to continue, knowing that arrogant men like this destroy themselves without help. Rogers took the silence as submission. He puffed out his chest, turning toward the cameras. "I've got PTSD, you know. They don't understand what it's like to see combat. They disrespected a Marine, someone who fought for their freedom." Whispers rippled through the gallery. Even those who believed him at first began to hesitate. Something about the way he said, "see combat," didn't sound lived in. It sounded practiced. Judge Judy finally spoke. "And when exactly did you serve, Mr. Rogers?" He blinked. "Oh, rock. 2009. First Division. Judy nodded slightly, pen tapping her notepad. First Division, you say? And your service number? Rogers hesitated, his throat tightening. I don't remember it offhand. You don't remember your own service number? She asked, her tone deceptively calm. Ma'am, I've got trauma. You wouldn't understand. He said it too sharply. Too rehearsed. Judy's eyes narrowed, she'd seen fraud before. She just let him dig deeper. You claim this cafe denied you a veteran's discount? Yes, ma'am. They laughed in my face. Called me a fake. And so you're suing them for? Defamation. Emotional distress. $10,000 in damages. Judy leaned back, hands folded. $10,000. For hurt feelings. That's when Rogers snapped. You don't understand sacrifice. You've never been under fire. You don't know what it means to be a Marine. The audience gasped. The bailiff's hand twitched toward his holster. Instinctive, protective. Judy didn't move an inch. Her gaze was ice. Careful, Mr. Rogers. You're not talking to a recruit. He rolled his eyes, muttering under his breath. You judges think you're heroes. But what Mark Rogers didn't know, what no one in that courtroom knew yet, was that Judge Judy had already called the Department of Defense that morning. She already had an answer sealed inside the folder on her bench. And she was waiting for the perfect moment to use it. You ever seen someone lie so confidently, the narrator says softly, you almost believe them? Hit that like button if you've met exactly this kind of person. Loud, arrogant, and absolutely convinced they'll never be caught. Because this performance was almost over. And the curtain was about to come crashing down. The courtroom doors opened again, and this time, a different kind of presence filled the room, quiet, humble, and heavy with exhaustion. Linda Garcia stepped forward, clutching a stack of papers that looked heavier than they were. She wasn't dressed for battle, she was dressed for survival. A navy blue cardigan, simple slacks, tired eyes that had seen too much stress for 1 month, but behind that fatigue was pride. Judge Judy glanced up, the faintest softening in her expression. Miss Garcia, you're the owner of Honor Grounds Cafe, correct? Linda nodded. Yes, Your Honor. Tell me what happened. Linda took a slow breath, and her voice trembled at first, then steadied. I opened the cafe 3 years ago after my husband passed. He was a Marine, Staff Sergeant Miguel Garcia. I wanted to create a space where veterans could work, talk, feel safe, somewhere that still felt like home. Her words landed like quiet thunder. The audience shifted, even Judy's pen stopped moving. Linda continued, eyes fixed on the faker across the room. He came in one morning, said he was a Marine, demanded the veteran discount. I asked for his military ID and he showed me a card that looked off. The barcode was smudged and the photo had a flag background. That's not how military IDs are printed. She swallowed hard, the memory still raw. I politely told him I couldn't give him the discount without proper verification. He started yelling. Called me a fake patriot, said I was spitting on soldiers. He threw his coffee at the counter, missed me by inches. My employees had to call the police. Judge Judy leaned forward, her brow furrowed. And then he sued you? Yes, ma'am. For discrimination. Linda's voice cracked for the first time. I didn't even want to fight back, Your Honor. But I've got veterans working for me who live on fixed incomes. I couldn't let a liar drag us through the mud. The fake Marine seated a few feet away rolled his eyes. She's lying. I was calm. She's exaggerating for sympathy. Judy's eyes snapped toward him. You've had plenty of time to talk, Mr. Rogers. Let her finish. He sank back into his chair, mumbling curses under his breath. Linda turned slightly toward him, voice low but cutting. You insulted everything my husband stood for. And you think you're the victim? For a moment, silence filled the room. The air felt charged, not with anger but with the ache of something sacred being mocked. Narrator's voice, quiet and deliberate. And what Linda didn't realize when she walked into that courtroom was that someone in the back row had worn that same uniform for real, and recognized every fake stitch of it. In that moment, the audience wasn't watching a case anymore. They were witnessing injustice personified, a woman who built something honorable being dragged through court by a man who built his life on lies. Judge Judy's pen tapped once, sharp and final. Her tone dropped to steel. This isn't about discounts anymore. This is about respect. Because in Judge Judy's courtroom, lies might echo loud, But truth always speaks last. If this story already has your blood boiling, hit subscribe right now, because what happens next will make your day, and restore your faith that real honor still means something in this country. Judge Judy adjusted her glasses, her expression unreadable. The fake Marine's arrogance filled the air like smoke, but Judy had seen smoke before. She knew how to trace it back to the fire. She opened the folder in front of her, flipping through the documents slowly, deliberately, letting each page turn feel like a countdown. "Mr. Rogers," she began evenly, "your service record here says you enlisted in 2009. Correct?" He nodded too quickly. "Yes, ma'am." "Iraq deployment." She scanned the paper again, then tapped it twice with her pen. "Your service number is missing digits." He froze. I had to reprint that form. The ink." Judy cut him off without looking up. "And your medals are out of order." His eyebrows shot up. "What do you mean?" "I mean," Judy said, voice calm but slicing, "you're wearing a Bronze Star above a Navy Cross. You're wearing campaign ribbons from operations that ended before you claim you enlisted. And your rank insignia," she paused, raising her gaze to meet his, "doesn't even exist." The room went dead quiet. Even the camera crew stopped breathing. A bead of sweat trickled down his temple. He shifted in his chair, clearing his throat. I'm part of a special unit. We had different badges." Judy leaned back, folding her hands like a predator letting its prey speak before the strike. "Special unit?" she repeated. "Which one?" The 42nd Division. "California base?" he muttered, trying to sound casual. The corners of Judy's lips twitched, not a smile but something colder. "There's no such division." The words hit the room like a gunshot. A murmur rippled through the audience. Someone in the back whispered, "He's finished." But Judy wasn't done. She leaned forward again, tone clinical. "Mr. Rogers, are you aware that impersonating a member of the U.S. military for personal gain violates federal law?" He swallowed. "I'm not impersonating anyone. I served. You can call my old unit if you don't believe me." Judy's pen stopped tapping. The silence stretched until it became unbearable. Then she said quietly, "Funny you should say that, because I already did." The faker blinked. "WH what?" "I called the Department of Defense this morning." She lifted a sealed document. "And would you like to know what they said?" He stammered, "That's private information." "They said," she continued, ignoring him, "that there is no record of any Mark Rogers serving in the U.S. Marine Corps." The faker's mouth opened but no sound came out. The color drained from his face. "So," Judy said softly, turning toward the bailiff, "let's bring in someone who might be able to help clarify this." Every head in the courtroom turned toward the door. Because sitting just outside that door was someone whose life would change this courtroom forever. The real Marine, silent, patient, and ready. "You're not ready for what's about to happen next. Stay till the end, because this twist? It's pure justice." The courtroom door opened with a soft creak that somehow sounded louder than the man's entire performance. Every head turned. The camera light caught a glint of real brass, not the cheap imitation on the faker's chest, but the kind of shine earned in war, not bought online. Sergeant Daniel Harris, Ret. walked in. Every step was steady, grounded, unmistakably military. His uniform told a story without him saying a word. Service ribbons properly aligned, badges real, his medals dull from years of wear, not months of polishing. He didn't need to act like a Marine. He was one. He stopped at the center of the courtroom, gave a sharp salute to Judge Judy, and said, his voice deep and calm, "Permission to speak, Your Honor." Judy nodded, her eyes glinting with that mix of respect and silent satisfaction. "Proceed, Sergeant." Then he turned, slowly, deliberately, toward the faker. The room froze. "Take that uniform off," Harris said. "You haven't earned a single thread of it." Mark Rogers blinked, caught between rage and panic. His face drained of color. "You can't prove anything," he shouted, standing abruptly. Harris didn't flinch. He stepped closer, his voice still level. "Tell me the Marine Corps motto, soldier." The faker's lips parted, nothing came out. Just air and fear. "Say it," Harris repeated, louder this time. "What's the motto that every Marine learns before they ever touch that uniform?" Still silence. The real Marine's voice broke just slightly, that gravelly emotion only warriors carry. "Because I've buried men who lived by it, and you don't even know the words. No one moved. The courtroom felt sacred now, like a church of truth. Rogers shook his head desperately. This is a misunderstanding. The misunderstanding, Judge Judy interrupted sharply, is that you thought you could lie to a nation that knows what real sacrifice looks like. Her gavel slammed once, a sound that cracked through every lie that had filled the room. You didn't just fake a rank, you faked respect. And that's something no court can forgive. The faker collapsed into his chair, mumbling incoherently. Harris turned to Judy, gave one last firm salute and quietly stepped back. The audience erupted into murmurs, a mix of outrage, admiration, and relief. For a moment Judy didn't speak. She just looked at Harris, nodding once. That nod said everything. Justice had arrived in uniform. If that moment gave you chills, hit like right now. Because real heroes deserve that kind of justice every single day. The courtroom was silent but not peaceful. It was the kind of silence that follows an earthquake when everyone is still trying to understand the scale of what just happened. Mark Rogers sat slumped in his chair, eyes darting from Judge Judy to the real Marine standing across from him. His voice, which had filled the courtroom with arrogance only minutes earlier, was gone. Judge Judy's tone was calm now, surgical. The Department of Defense has confirmed there is no record of any Mark Rogers serving in the United States Marine Corps. Not under that name. Not under any name you've given this court. Rogers opened his mouth but no sound came out, only a strangled gasp that ended in silence. He knew it was over. You came into this courtroom wearing a sacred uniform, Judy continued, her words cold but controlled. You used it to demand sympathy, money, and recognition you didn't earn. That's not just disrespect. That's impersonation, and it's fraud. The bailiff took a step closer. The faker didn't resist. He just stared at the floor, his fake medals glinting under the harsh lights. This court finds in favor of the defendant, Ms. Linda Garcia, Judy declared. You are awarded full damages for your legal costs and the distress caused by this fraudulent claim. Mr. Rogers is ordered to issue a public apology, and this court is forwarding your case to the District Attorney's Office for review under the Stolen Valor Act. The crowd gasped, then burst into low murmurs of relief and satisfaction. Linda covered her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. Sergeant Harris gave a slow, respectful nod toward her, the kind only soldiers and widows truly understand. And just like that, justice wasn't just served, it was restored. Within 24 hours, the clip hit the internet like a storm. The moment Harris confronted the fake Marine was replayed across every platform. TikTok, YouTube, Twitter. Hashtags exploded. Hashtag Real Marine Destroys Fraud. Hashtag Stolen Valor Justice. Hashtag Judge Judy Truth. Veterans across the country reposted the clip. Some called it the most satisfying courtroom moment ever. Others stitched reactions, saluting their screens in pride. Even military pages began sharing side-by-side images of real Marines and the faker, captioned, "One earned it. One lied for it." Mark Rogers' mugshot leaked 2 days later. Within hours it became a meme. The man who yelled at Judge Judy. Meanwhile, at a small cafe in California, business boomed. Linda's Honor Grounds Cafe became a symbol of authenticity and resilience. Veterans showed up from miles away, not for the coffee but for what it represented. They left medals, flags, and handwritten notes. For Miguel. For honor. For truth. Narrator's tone deepens. Sometimes justice doesn't just punish, it restores dignity. It reminds us that respect can't be claimed, it must be earned. And in Judge Judy's courtroom, the truth doesn't whisper, it roars. The story could have ended there, but it didn't. Because what happened next would make this case one of the most shared courtroom moments in history, the perfect finale to a fraud that thought it could fool America. The echo of the gavel still hung in the air like thunder that refused to fade. The courtroom, moments ago alive with murmurs and gasps, now stood in reverent silence. You could almost hear the weight of what had just happened, the sound of arrogance collapsing under the truth. Judge Judy looked down at Mark Rogers, or rather, the man who pretended to be him. The uniform he wore no longer commanded attention. It hung loose on his shoulders, stripped of meaning, heavy with shame. The once proud medals glimmered faintly under the courtroom lights, but now they looked like props on a stage after the curtain has fallen. Judy leaned forward, her tone calm, steady, and final, the voice of justice itself. "You don't steal honor," she said. "You earn it, In blood, not in costume. No one moved. The words hit the faker harder than any punishment could. His eyes welled up, not with regret, but with realization that he had crossed a line no apology could erase. The bailiff stepped forward to escort him out, but before he turned away, Sergeant Harris rose quietly from the gallery. He stood at attention. No anger. No gloating. Just the still dignity of a man who had lived the word semper fidelis. He lifted his right hand in a perfect salute. The faker couldn't look at him. He lowered his head and walked out of the courtroom in silence, his fake rank insignia catching the light one last time before disappearing through the door. Judge Judy exhaled softly, her face unreadable. Then she turned to Linda. Mrs. Garcia, you and your husband honored this country with service and sacrifice. Don't let liars like this make you doubt the goodness that still exists out there. Linda nodded, tears glistening but proud. Behind her, Sergeant Harris stepped forward and shook her hand. Your husband would be proud, he said quietly. That single handshake, the widow of a Marine and the brother-in-arms of her late husband, drew a quiet round of applause from the courtroom audience. It wasn't loud. It wasn't for show. It was the sound of gratitude, of people reminded what honor really means. The narrator's voice came in low, cinematic, filled with American pride. The faker walked in a liar, and left as a lesson. Because in Judge Judy's courtroom, justice doesn't just punish, it protects what's sacred. It reminds us that truth, courage, and respect are not decorations. They're values. And when someone tries to steal them, justice will always find its way. As the Marine gave one last salute and Linda wiped her tears, the camera would have faded on a courtroom still heavy with emotion, but lighter with truth. If this story restored your faith in justice, smash that like button right now. Comment, honor wins if you stand with real heroes. And subscribe because next week, we're covering the woman who faked being a firefighter and got exposed in front of live TV cameras. You don't want to miss what happens when truth wears the badge, and lies go up in flames.